And before we talk anything about the budget, I want to talk to you about the COVID inquiry.
Yeah.
We heard Baroness Hallett in a scathing statement yesterday talking about a government that you were a part of during that period. First of all, do you want to take the opportunity to apologise to the victims of COVID-19 for some of the mistakes that were made by the Johnson administration?
Look, I know that the inquiry that was published yesterday is going to dredge up a lot of dismal memories for a lot of people. Coming into the studio this morning, thinking about the people I know who didn't survive, and also about some of the young people whose lives were shaken up very, very dramatically by what happened. And obviously, I'm very. My heart goes out to everybody who was impacted in those ways. And I think the findings yesterday are quite complex. Mm-hmm. That you have the inquiry saying that maybe the government should have locked down earlier in March 2020. But also the inquiry says that was the scientific advice that was given to ministers in March. Mm-hmm. And the government... Boris Johnson and the ministers around him working in this incredibly difficult set of circumstances, facing a pandemic the like of which we hadn't seen in a century, hadn't seen since 1919, Spanish influenza at the end of the First World War. And the scientific advice kept changing. And I'm not criticising the scientists in any way, mm-hmm. I'm criticising because nobody knew what this thing was. Yeah. And so this is a long-winded way of saying...
You haven't said sorry.
Well, I'm sorry to everyone for the pain that they went through. I think it's for the people who were making decisions at the time to decide what they want to say. But I am not going to criticise the people who were making decisions then, because it was... Everything becomes a bit clearer with hindsight, but they were doing something that no government had to do in a century in an environment where we didn't really know what we were dealing with. So it's all very difficult. So the first thing is that the government was acting on scientific advice. I think that the second thing I would say is that what really needs to come out of this inquiry is a better understanding of how the next government that has to face anything like this can get the best possible scientific advice at the fastest pace, and how we can make sure that the mechanisms of government can work faster and more efficiently. Yeah. Some things that the government at the time did very well. The vaccine production and rollout was just about the best in the world.
Definitely was.
The furlough payments were again considered to be absolutely world standard. But of course, no government everywhere got everything right. And we've got to make sure that we understand what's what.
Let me put another point to you then. Baroness Hallett also described the situation in Number 10. Now, you were Boris Johnson's PPS. For everyone who doesn't know, that is your principal...
Oh, no, Parliamentary Private Secretary. It's confusing, but a Parliamentary Private Secretary is a parliamentary aide. So I wasn't an advisor in Number 10.
Thank you.
But I did work with Boris Johnson closely in terms of liaising with members of Parliament.
Really quick on this then. She described him as toxic, chaotic and indecisive. Is that a fair description?
I don't think it is, actually. And I only saw things... I think I left London on about the 25th of March when lockdown began. I just saw a lot of people working very, very hard to do the best thing for the country in what was an extremely difficult and anxious-making environment. And just to remind people, the following month, the Prime Minister nearly died.
Yeah, he was very sick.
He was incredibly ill, and there were moments where we thought he wouldn't live. That's how tense it was.
Alex, I want to get you on this final thing. Sky News understands that the Prime Minister, the current Prime Minister, is going to approve this super embassy, this Chinese super embassy. What's your response to that? Concerns about security?
Yeah, look, the Conservative Party doesn't want this to go ahead. Very concerned about security, very concerned about technical issues that have been raised by people who think that this might be used to look at information that is coming through the City of London. But we've just had a case of Chinese spies spying on members of Parliament, and that's...
Alex, I'm sorry, we've run out of time.